Hello and welcome to the arcade. You know, a lot of times when people talk about a satisfying gaming experience that they've had, it's when they've beaten something that took a lot of effort over many days, weeks, or even months, before they eventually beat that final boss or completed that last level. There's something about working on a goal for a really long time and finally reaching the finish line that just makes you feel really good, especially if the game itself was a really great and unique experience. But on the flip side of that, sometimes it can be nice to one-shot a game, to beat it in a single session in one sitting. The fact that the immersion is never broken, days and nights don't pass in between the intro and the end credits, creates a unique connection to the game and a special kind of gaming memory that tends to stick with you for a long time. So today we're talking about games that are meant to, or at least can be, beaten in a single sitting, and why that can be so cool. One of the things that makes video games so cool and unique is the fact that they can be paused and returned to. That's a really cool thing that longer games have in common with things like TV shows and novels. So it can feel strange sometimes to complete a game in a single sitting, especially longer games. It can feel retro, like you're playing an old school game like Super Mario Land, which might take you a day or two to master, but definitely can be fully completed in less than an hour. It can also feel immersive, like you're experiencing a movie, a constant flow from start to end, at one with the story, characters, and game world. And there's no denying some games are meant to be played and beaten in a single session. But what about when the game isn't designed that way, yet you do it anyway? Well, that's what happened to me with Mass Effect 2. You see, I had just received my Xbox 360 for Christmas in 2011, and I had been dying to play Mass Effect 2 ever since the first announcement trailer I saw. And admittedly, I do occasionally have a problem with binging media. So the evening of that Christmas, I put Mass Effect 2 in my Xbox 360, started the game around 10 p.m. or so, and didn't stop playing until I beat it at about 8 p.m. the next day. 22 straight hours without stopping, except to quickly grab leftovers and use the bathroom once or twice. It was such an immersive gaming experience that I just refused to opt out of. I have played the game a few other times since that first time, but that's one of my most fond gaming memories ever, and not really something I have the time to do these days, being older and having more responsibility in my life. Another game not meant for a single sitting that I beat was Warhammer 40k Space Marine. In the late summer of 2011, when that game first came out, I was able to snag a copy from my local Blockbuster for really cheap, probably using trade-ins or maybe just due to the fact that my store was shutting down for good that year and everything was on clearance. And I was so hyped to play that game even though I had never really experienced anything else in the Warhammer 40k franchise before. It took me around 7 hours, maybe a little less, but I beat the game in one sitting after being absolutely, fully, and totally absorbed by the world building and the non-stop action thrill ride that was that absolute summer blockbuster of a game. A couple of others that I have sort of unintentionally beaten in a single session were Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time and Mirror's Edge. Both because I just somehow became completely absorbed by the world of the game, and I wanted nothing more in that moment than to stay immersed in the game world until I had beaten the whole thing. The times that I beat both of those games in a single sitting, though, was admittedly after many repeat playthroughs and even half-hearted attempts to memorize or even kind of speedrun the games. So I guess those two don't count as much, but I still had a great time beating Prince of Persia and Mirror's Edge in those single sessions each, beating Prince of Persia in about 5 hours and Mirror's Edge in around 3. But you know, there's something really special about the games that are meant for the single session. You don't have to rush through them, skipping meals and losing sleep. You're able to start the game and finish it in a reasonable amount of time, experiencing everything that the developers intended without sacrifice. And here are some of my favorites. Number 1, A Short Hike. Perhaps the best example of a game designed for a single sitting, certainly one of the most enjoyable. It's a game that fully embodies the idea of an open world or sandbox, complete with secrets, minigames, collectibles, and characters to interact with, but at the same time, the game never becomes overwhelming and never overstays its welcome. In just a few short hours, you'll go from a brand new island explorer to a full-fledged flighted adventurer on a rich and satisfying emotional journey that is as fun on the 15th playthrough as it is on the first. Number 2, Limbo. Limbo is a game that I was actually a little obsessive over for a while there. When the game first showed up on GameTrailers.com, I could not believe what I was seeing. I think there'd been a real lack of unique video game art styles crossing my path to that point, and it just felt like it opened up a whole new world of minimalist indie games for me to dive into. The black and white art style isn't the only minimalist thing about it though. The story is also the same way, using no dialogue to explain the plot and no on-screen prompts to provide instructions to the player. The only story you get is from the actions of the NPCs and the environment and the backgrounds. Otherwise, it's all up to you to figure out and interpret. There is also a back-of-the-box description of the game, but as far as inside the game world, there is nothing. Number 3, Inside. This is another game by the same developer as Limbo. It's mostly the same idea, but fleshed out to a much deeper level. You'll find a similar mix of gameplay and structure as Limbo, but it has a different setting, protagonist, and story. It also requires a bit more time and skill to master, but it's very much worth it. There are some really stylish and surprisingly beautiful moments in this game that make it one of my favorites to actually replay, even though it can easily be beaten in just a few short hours. Number 4, Little Nightmares. Not by the same studio, but definitely in a similar vein as Limbo and Inside is Little Nightmares, which is a 2.5D side-scrolling hide-and-seek horror game that takes a little less than 2 hours to complete. It's full of evocative visuals and themes, and has one of the most satisfying yet intriguing endings to a game I've ever played. The reason why the developer calls it a hide-and-seek game is due to the fact that there's no way to fight back against most of the enemies. All you can do is run and hide. There are a couple small things that bothered me about this game, like some of the platforming and some of the camera angles in the sections that are truly 2.5D instead of just 2D, but other than that, this one is a blast to play and revisit to find all kinds of dark secrets and hidden meanings within the game's incredible visuals and detailed world. Number 5, Portal. Portal was a gaming experience that honestly kind of went over my head a little bit the first time I played it. It was deep, and I could feel that it was, even if I couldn't articulate it back when I first played it. I knew I loved it, but it wasn't until a little later in life, replaying it for the millionth time, when the brilliance of Portal, the brilliance in the puzzles and in the story that plays out, really sunk in for me. Honestly, the people who designed the puzzles for Portal are some absolute geniuses, and they made something really special with this game. Number 6, Journey. For some reason, it took me forever to get around to playing this game. I was always a PlayStation fanboy, but I just never really got around to this one until very recently. I still don't really understand it, but it was such a joy to experience. The game made me feel like an outsider being accepted into the loving arms of a world I didn't quite understand but still felt comforted by. This game is beloved for a reason. It has such a strong voice, even though not a single word of dialogue is spoken throughout the whole game. The world building and the pacing of the game are also incredible. It's probably the best example, maybe even more so than A Short Hike, of a game that you should finish in one sitting. I don't even know why, but I got so emotional at the end of this game. It was just such a cool and unique experience that I will remember for a long time. Number 7, The Stanley Parable. Now, this is kind of a weird one because there is definitely enough content here to keep you coming back over and over again, but I do believe that it has enough meat on the bone for a single session to satisfy most gamers. If you don't know already, there are multiple endings of this game, and the goal is to try to find as many as you can. In just a few hours, you should be able to find dozens of different endings, depending on the series of different choices you make throughout the game. It's surreal, different, and now one of those Hall of Fame of the Internet type games. Number 8. Super Hot. Super Hot is an action game with the unique twist that time only moves when you do. It seems simple at first, but by the time you reach the end of this one, you'll see how brilliant this concept truly is and just how fun it can be to play. It's another one, kind of like the Stanley Parable, that has high replay value for challenges and even just skill expression, but just the main campaign by itself is only around 2 hours. Number 9. Firewatch. This game isn't what you think it is. It's not until you've played it or watched it for yourself that you realize that it's not about a solitary woodland outpost, it's not about the mysterious and dense forest, and it's not even about the freedom and exploration of the outdoors. It's about the story. Henry and Delilah are 2 fire lookouts in the Wyoming wilderness. I won't spoil it, but what starts out as routine investigations eventually starts to become more eerie. It's a roller coaster and will have you hooked, especially as the tension ramps up towards the end of the game. I think the value of short games that you can finish in one sitting comes from a few different things. They're kind of like short stories. They have to condense a big idea into a smaller package. I also feel like they provide a different kind of immersion than you get from a longer game. In something like Red Dead 2, you might start to feel like the characters from that game are a real group of friends that you have and visit every day. But in something like Journey, it's like a small world that you got to visit just for one day. I don't know, it's hard to explain. Finishing a game in one sitting feels like a dream that you had, especially if you don't ever revisit that game. A really small game can still create a really powerful and meaningful memory, and the best short games that you finish in one sitting stick with you for a long time after. And I don't know, there's just nothing like those gaming memories of beating something in a single session. It's got a unique charm to it that maybe reminds us of when we were younger and we would finish a book or a movie in one sitting and maybe go years or forever without ever seeing or experiencing that world again. I think another thing is some of us prefer to experience a lot of different games rather than focusing on dedicating a ton of time into just a few. When our free time is limited by the responsibilities of adulthood, these short games that you can complete in a single session feel incredibly valuable and give us a sense of nostalgia, reminding us of a part of our lives when we had all the free time in the world to experience as many different games, books, movies, or shows as we wanted. Wherever you derive the value from ultimately doesn't matter that much. These games provide us with such rich and meaningful experiences that are so much more vast than their short runtimes would suggest. And like I said before, those memories we create by beating the game in a single session are memories that tend to stick with us for a long, long time. To wrap it up, I'd love to hear from you. What are some games that you've completed in a single session, and what did it mean to you? Tell us your stories in the comments. And as always, until next time, thank you so much for watching.